Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to our webinar on enhancing the client experience in legal firms. The session is going to be presented by myself, Robert Meehan. I'm head of marketing here at Cloudthing, and Amy Brightman, who is our UX practice lead.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm the UX practice lead here at Cloudthing. I've been working in user experience now for about 20 years, working across many different industries and clients for people like the NHS and Orange, Savills. So that's me.
Great, and I know sometimes people groan when they see a marketing or salesperson leading these webinars, but I spend a lot of my time talking to people in the industries that we are focused on, running events, getting feedback and working out how the solutions are really going to help our customers achieve their goals. So there'll be a minimal of me and most of Amy, so just to settle you all down. Right, so a bit of an agenda for this session. We will be covering some challenges in the legal sector, very quickly walking you through that, as I'm sure it's probably some stuff you'll already be aware of, and then Amy will be taking you through how to be client-led and how design thinking can work in a law firm, how these can help create great customer and client experiences, and examples of where we've done this sort of work before in the sector, and some success stories there. And finally, a few steps on how you can get started. So, some of you may have seen this quote before. We ran an event to the legal sector with Microsoft not too long ago, and this was one of the ones we showed there. Again, I'm not going to labour the point too much. I'm sure everybody knows that the legal sector is one that's undergoing change. There's lots of transformation, lots of suppliers to the industry saying that they've got the latest and greatest tech that's going to change how you work, but there is a key core demand from clients to have law firms be more accessible, get services quicker and have a more personalised service. So this is another slide from that sector, from that session. As you can see, there's lots of different icons on there and there's lots to unpack, but the core thing to take away is there's lots of conversations going on in the legal sector at the moment, and it can be quite challenging to really work out where the priorities are and what can make a difference in your firm. Again, we could spend a long time going through all of these, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen this slide before, or you've had these sorts of conversations. The key thing we wanted to say here is that the legal sector is changing. Lots of firms are trying different things. Lots of suppliers are saying they can make the world of difference. And the way we like to work really is get find the problem before we find the solution. We're experienced in doing a lot of this stuff, but the things on the right really is about identifying where we can make the biggest impact and you can make immediate change and incrementally build towards the new version of your firm, if you like. Those are the sorts of things we've been talking to clients about. We've had lots of feedback. Obviously, if there's anything else you want to discuss outside of this webinar, our Q&A is open, so myself and Amy are manning that. If there's anything you want to discuss going forward, please drop a question in there and we'll do our best to get to it, either in this session or further down the road. So that's enough from me for now. I'll pass you over to someone far more experience in the client-led and design thinking. So Amy.
Hi, and so before going much further, I wanted to just take a moment to look at what we mean when we say being client-led. So working with various different industries and organisations, what I see quite a lot is projects being raised around features and functionality. People look at how they want to develop, and it comes down to, well, let's look at what features and functionality our competitors have got, or what's available, and basically kind of selecting from those features and functionality. What being client-led means is taking a step back from that and starting with who your clients are and what their needs are. So it means putting your clients literally at the heart of your design and development process. So the theory there is if you deeply understand your clients, what their needs are, what environment they're in, what they're trying to do, what their tasks are, what their motivations are, if you deeply understand all of that, you can look at ways to meet that. Off the back of that, you'll then get your retention and your acquisition will just naturally follow. So what's important to mention when we talk about being client-led as well, doesn't mean all client-led. It's still important to think about what your business goals are, what your values are, and what's technically feasible for you to do. So the kind of sweet spot between all of that is where to put your effort. So understand your client, marry that with what you're trying to achieve as a business, and again, marry that with what's technically feasible for your firm and your organisation. And if you bring those three things together, that's when you'll start delivering really great client experiences. So a good place to start in doing what I've just talked about is to look at what the current experience is for your clients, if this is something that you haven't already done. So, you know, think about, do you go out and frequently talk to your clients and understand what their experience is and how they feel about that, whether it works for them. So a good way to kind of bring all of that information and distill it is in a customer journey map, which is, I've kind of put an example on the right. It's not obviously not filled in, but you can see what a template might look like. So if you kind of take a deep dive into their experience, looking at all the different stages of their journey with you, what happens in those stages, and through that, what their feelings are. You know, is it emotional time for them? Are they going through hard times? It's all important information to think about when thinking about where the opportunities and the pain points are there for your clients. You know, are they satisfied with what they're experiencing with you, and are you missing those opportunities? So that all starts to be mapped out, and you can really take kind of a deep dive look at where to put your efforts. So when it comes to design thinking, this is kind of a mindset. It's an approach to being client-led. So we've talked about why it's important to put the customers at the heart of what you do. Design thinking is an approach to solving problems by putting your customers at the heart of it. So it's a 5-step process. As you can see, you kind of go through an empathise, define, ideate, prototype and test stages. And through that, what you start off with is a deep understanding of who your customers are and what they're experiencing, and you go through a process of understanding where those opportunities are there and defining problem statements till you get to a point where you've got some kind of well scoped out solutions and ideas on how to fix those problems. What then would fall off the back of this process is then implementation of those things. So looking at the first step in a bit more detail, we have the empathise step. So this is all about being curious and immersing yourself in your client's world and their experience of your service. So understanding who they are, what their problems are, observe them, engage with them. So not just your clients here, but your staff as well. So understanding the full experience end to end of the service. You know, how are things happening? How do they work? Why do they work in that way? It allows you to start seeing things in a fresh perspective when you start seeing it from all the different kind of points of view of the people involved. You know, it could form interviews, surveys, questions, and the kind of things that you're generally looking for is where people have kind of implemented workarounds to things, or you find that certain elements are repetitive, your clients are giving the same information at multiple times to different people, for instance. All of those kind of challenges and opportunities start to become apparent in the empathise stage. Once you've taken a look at that, you come into what's kind of classed as a define stage, and that's where you take all of that information you've got out of empathise and you try and distill it down into kind of what is the actual problem that we're trying to solve here. So from that, you're looking at creating a problem statement. So you understand where your customers are coming from, you understand what you're trying to achieve as a business, and you look at those opportunities and you create and distill a real problem statement. Now, it's important to note that problem statement shouldn't be business focused, it should be customer focused, or in your case, client focused. So a good problem statement isn't something like we need to increase our client retention by 10%. That's a business goal. What it should be is more along the lines of, as an example, keep a central repository for our client information and documents so that clients can easily access all of their information and have a reason to stay. So with a real good problem statement, you have something there to really start kind of brainstorming and coming up with ideas from, which is in the next phase. The important thing to note as part of the divine phase is you can't solve everything. So this should really go in on what are the most important things to solve, the most important problems. So once you've got a clear understanding of your opportunities and what you really want to solve, you kind of go into ideation. And the idea behind this is that the more ideas that you have from the more different perspectives, the better the end solution is going to be. If you have just one person on their own, from their own perspective, coming up with one idea and then running with that, it is not going to give you the same benefit as a group of people all coming up with different ideas, talking about them, building on them, and then looking at which one do everybody as a group have the most belief in. And that's what this ideation stage is. And again, there's lots of different kind of techniques and activities that you can use through this ideation phase. What's commonly done is, you know, literally pen and paper and people kind of sketching either little kind of storyboards or what a screen design might look like to try and bring to life an idea as to how to solve that problem. Once you've kind of gone through ideation and as a group you've picked kind of, I really love a kind of idea A and B the most, so let's take those to the next stage. You come into prototyping, and the idea of prototyping isn't to come up with something that's kind of a fully fledged out everything that you want it to be. This is what areas do we really need to kind of test and validate very quickly so that we've got more confidence in what we want to do before we go anywhere near implementing it. So this just allows you to kind of succeed fast. It's kind of that fail fast, succeed fast mentality, where if you can try out different ideas quickly and cheaply, if they don't work, then it's no big deal. It can be built on to then go on to something else that will work. So that's what prototyping is all about. And again, there's kind of loads of different ways you can do this. The theory is just, you know, the easier and the cheaper and the quicker, the better. Quite often it can just be click-throughs of screens. It might still be kind of paper and pen that you show people. But yeah, create something you can test is what this phase is all about. Then you move on to test. So this is where you literally take that prototype and you put it in front of people to get their feedback. Ideally, you want those people to be your target audience. So you want them to be people who are either existing clients or someone who has the potential to become an existing client. The people that you really don't want are the people that are actually in your firm. So they're way too close to how things work and how you currently work. And so it's going to create bias. So if you're struggling to get that access to clients, one thing that you can do, though better than doing nothing, is to involve kind of friends and family. So that gives you a good amount of feedback and insight, but what you just need to be a little bit wary of is how you then interpret those results, knowing that they're potentially not your target audience. So through this, what you're looking at is using that prototype to put it in front of people and look at, you know, can they understand what needs to be done? Do they like it? Are there areas that they think can be improved? How do they feel about it? Can they achieve what they need to? And of course, through this phase, the important thing is to keep thinking back to what you talked about in Define. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? And having put it in front of people and tested it, do you have the belief that that has achieved and solved that problem? And what areas have you got to kind of build on this further and kind of improve the concept?
So we've had a question in from Ed, who asks, are we not missing a trick if we're only speaking to our customers? They are already using our services. What about potential customers who are not using our services and their reasons for not doing so?
Absolutely. So generally, when you go out and test, you're testing with a target audience, and that generally is a mix of existing clients and potentially new ones. So as long as they kind of meet the criteria as to who you'd want to bring on, then absolutely, and it does give the best results to do a mix of existing and potentially new clients.
And I suppose it obviously depends on the firm and who their clients are, whether it's, you know, a kind of residential conveyancing, for example, could be a lot of people, but potentially for commercial, it's almost a new business opportunity as well to go and say, we're looking at this approach, can we have a conversation with you?
Absolutely. Okay, so again with this, it's important to note that whilst it looks like a nice, clean, simple, linear process, you know, that's kind of rarely life. What this is more is a mindset, and you can iterate through these steps. So you'll likely kind of start off going through relatively linear, but you'll find that you kind of go back and forth between these steps a little bit. So for instance, when you start prototyping, it might kind of spark new ideas and different things that you hadn't thought about in Ideate, and you might want to explore that a little bit further. The obvious one is once you go out and test, you're bound to get feedback from people that you're going to want to make changes on, and that might even challenge your initial problem. They might come up with something else or some other insight that makes you go back and even challenge what the problem you set out to achieve is. And so throughout this process, the important thing is just to keep focused on what you're trying to achieve, who are your audience, and if you kind of end up iterating back through these steps in order to address that and achieve it, then that's absolutely perfectly fine and should be done. Excuse me. So the benefits of design thinking. So there's many benefits of design thinking. As I say, you kind of it's very client-led, which allows you to create great experiences, but there's also kind of the innovative side to this. So breaking these down, you've got speed to market and competitive advantage. So successful organisations in general and firms now differentiate on service. I guess it's going back to the quote that was originally discussed at the start. We're not in a world anymore where organisations can differentiate on cost so much. People out there have got expectations, and service is what's actually creating that difference. If you take the methodology that we've just talked about, it allows a high speed to market, so you can come up with new and innovative, creative ideas to solve real kind of business and customer problems. But if they're not going to work, you find that out soon, and you get the feedback to keep on iterating it until you have an idea that will work. So it gives you more speed. Again, you can create new revenue streams because it's a safety net of not investing masses of money in something to realise it hasn't worked. This is ways of kind of testing ideas iteratively and quickly so that you can find out and innovate and work out where you are going to get that ROI. And through that, you're going to reach new markets. So innovation and collaboration. So again, in today's world, you have to constantly reinvent to be relevant. The organisations and the firms that are just treading water and doing things the way that they've always done them are not going to last. The world's changing and we need to change with it. And what's lovely about this process is that you'll find it brings staff together with a common focus and breaks down those silos. And with that, it encourages people to think from other people's perspective and to really come together with all those different perspectives to create solutions. And that group thinking is where innovation really comes from. It doesn't ever come from one area of the business. It's people working together. Great client experiences at reduced risk and cost. So again, we've talked about this. So by that innovation and creating and trying new things in ways that are cheap before you invest in them, it allows that fail fast mentality, which reduce costs, it reduce risks, so that you know that you're investing in the real things that are going to make a difference. And as you kind of succeed in that and you create great client experiences, you're going to create loyalty and brand advocacy from your clients. This is not always about completely reinventing everything you've got. You can also look at this in terms of optimizing what you have. It's looking for those opportunities to reduce friction for your clients and create ideally moments of delight. You know, don't just go with what's expected. What can you do in those kind of moments of truth where you can really make a difference to to your clients that are actually going to make them go wow. And obviously, if you can achieve all of that, you off the back of it, that's where you're going to get your business success, your increased acquisition and retention, and you reduce risk and cost. So how to create great client experiences. We've been kind of quite high level to know and quite theoretical. So I just wanted to include, I guess, a slide in to kind of look at a little bit more of a detailed level how that could look. So it's important to note through this, it's never one size fits all. As I mentioned, through the different kind of phases and approach, you've got multiple techniques dependent on what you're trying to solve and and who your firm is and who are involved in these sessions. So this is kind of just an example to bring it to life. So when we're talking about kind of empathy and kind of the definition phase, what you're generally talking is we create a project vision board. And on that project vision board, it's kind of literally a one-pager of what are you trying to achieve? What's the vision? Who are you targeting? What are their key needs? And what as a business do you need to get out of it? So it just gives that clear focus. Doing a deep dive into user needs and goals. The customer map, so you saw that earlier. So as I say, that is a great activity to do to kind of get that snapshot of what your existing experience is to truly understand it. And then feature mapping. So this is where you kind of literally break down all of the kind of the user. What does the user want to achieve? How does that break down into the different tasks that they need to do? And how does that then break down into the detail underneath it? So you can start to see at a very high level fleshed out what solution you're looking to deliver. So in Ideate, prototype and test. So again, examples here. So ideation workshops, and so that's generally where you get a group of people together, all again from different perspectives, different areas of the business, where you create ideas for what the solution could be. What do you want to do? You create sketches of user journeys. You create prototypes, which we've already talked about. Usability testing, that's when you go out with those prototypes, and you can usability test at different levels. So it might be, as we talked about in the design thinking side, the really early stages where it's just real basic, simple, could even be sketches on paper, but you can then kind of test at various phases through the project, right up to you've got something that's kind of really sophisticated and looks very similar to what's going to go out live. And that's a way of just constantly testing and validating and getting that feedback from people into what you're doing. And then obviously you've kind of got the visual look and feel that needs to be looked at through that as well. Design, so this is where you you get more out of your design thinking and you're into more of an implementation mode here. So you know what the solution is. You know that it's going to land well with customers. This is where you really start to detail that out in a way that you can start to implement it. Again, as I mentioned, just because I've only got usability testing underneath the Ideate prototype and test doesn't mean that that wouldn't be in this phase as well. In an ideal world, you'd constantly do that as you develop and detail out your solution, so you can constantly evolve it.
Right. So I guess obviously there's quite a lot to digest there, and I guess the reason we've included this slide is, everything Amy does has the goal of delivering a tangible piece of software. At Cloudthing, we're not just design consultants, we build software for customers, and being led by our customers and what that could be means it can be a variety of things, especially in the legal sector. We don't want to come in and tell you need to throw out your existing case management system, or you need to immediately migrate absolutely everything to the cloud. The important thing to remember is through the power of things like Azure and the cloud, we can build things that exist either within your existing infrastructure and is integrated, or on the outskirts of it, connecting where it needs to, and that can lead to a lot of different things. And sometimes we start a project with a client, have these sorts of conversations. They think that they need a chatbot to improve how their clients are interacting and reduce the amount of calls. What they actually need is, those clients, they just want to get their information. They don't really mind through what channel. They want to get it themselves. So it's led to oh, actually, let's make a knowledge share portal. Exactly the same in sort of dealing with lawyers who want to understand precedent, who want to, you know, collaborate and understand where there's been similar cases and how that was resolved. Building an application that asks those questions and presents from your existing data where those cases have occurred and who was involved. It's all about understanding problems and then leading to solutions, which is a different way of having these sorts of discussions. Often, you know, you'll have people that tell you X, Y, and Z solution is going to solve absolutely everything. We don't want to take that approach with you. You know, we're not experts in your business, you are, and having this design-led approach leads to these sorts of outcomes. So it wouldn't be a webinar without a bit of a customer example. So we are lucky enough to work with Dipinner, who are a 240-year-old notary located in the West End of London. I'm sure some of you may actually be their clients, as they provide notarization, legalization and translation services across the globe to various other law firms. And as you can imagine, when your business is built around certifying paper-based documents and it's over 100 years old, there is a lot of processes and databases and file storage that needs to be unpicked. So when Dipinner engaged with us, they knew that they sort of needed to evolve. It was kind of a generational shift, which often happens in firms. Some of the partners coming through knew that they could work in a less stressful environment. They knew that they could give a better experience to clients. And when we got talking to them, we found out a lot of their business was actually still running on Lotus Notes, which some of you may remember from back in the day. So everything from email to document management to billing was all still running on there, which meant, of course, there were some real GDPR challenges. There was some very limited scope for sort of collaboration and working on mobile, that sort of thing. So the reason we're going through this is it was a very broad challenge and something that's definitely still ongoing. But the first step is to actually understand how they were interacting with their clients. And secondly, look what bits we could digitize when, and understand which was actually going to make the biggest impact first. We're still on a journey with Dipinner, but the kind of key challenges are here. You know, they want to know how their business is managed in real time. They want to understand which clients are engaging with them, which ones maybe aren't engaging with them as much as they once were, and how can they adjust that? Identify, you know, is a client engaging with more than one person in the firm? Can that be solidified? Can we streamline that process? Can we sort of preempt what a client's going to ask for? So it was all about, you know, mapping where their processes are, where the tech is involved, where there's sort of big warehouses full of paper forms that need to be unpicked and disposed of and digitized. And the real core part of that was future-proofing the business, sort of taking a step back, understanding where they currently are, what they're doing with Lotus Notes and the other bits of tech they're using across the firm, and building that platform for kind of ongoing change. So the outcome to date, you know, Dipinner is still very much a live client, still on their journey. We've spoken at events together, you know, that we have a very close collaborative sort of working relationship. So the first thing, of course, was to do some of the more boring things, I suppose. You know, I'm sure a lot of you guys have, you know, discussed AI, discussed chatbots, etc. But really, the thing that was going to make the biggest impact was making sure that all their emails were migrated to cloud. They could be accessed by their fee earners wherever they needed to, without using a blend of applications to enable them to get Lotus Notes on iPhones and things like that. And also make sure that a lot of the data was moved either into Dynamics or SharePoint or other tools on Azure, which enabled them to become GDPR compliant. It enabled them, because they'd mapped all their processes, they're now the only ISO compliant notary in the UK. And all of that comes from taking this high level approach and then drilling down at where you can make the biggest impact. It was very much a phased migration. We didn't say, you know, we're going to do a big bang and switch this off on Tuesday and on Wednesday everyone's going to use a new system. It's all about learning how you can phase things out and how you can get the staff on side. So with that in mind, the highest praise we probably had from Dipinner is the partner we've been working with there. You know, there's anticipation from the staff around the workflow tools, around what's coming next. because we've built this together. We've been on the journey together. We haven't just come in and told them this is the new way they're going to work, which leads on to some of the insights on the next slide. So a law firm, as everybody knows, is made up of lots of different people in different phases of their career, and trying to just enforce a big change is always very difficult. Lawyers have a way of working, they have their clients, they know they're good at their jobs, and they don't always like to be told they've been doing it wrong. And often they haven't, all things considered, you know, they're still making the firm a lot of money. So what's important is finding a way to sort of move fee earners, back office staff, and even clients onto these new systems in a way that it's identified with them what's important to them, and make sure we deliver a great experience to all the different members. And again, that collaborative approach, the design-led approach, means that there's not a huge investment in something that just everybody isn't going to want to use. Another point to make is definitely Depina as a notary has a lot of stringent regulatory requirements, which I'm sure all law firms do. And of course, there's different requirements due to client contracts. We certainly don't claim to be experts in technology law, and we would advise you to seek independent advice before embarking on a large project. But what is important is by leading with this sort of experience and client-led approach, you can find a lot of those blockers early in the project while you're still wireframing. You know, if you've got the people in the room, they'll say, hang on, we can't do that for customer X because we've agreed that their information is stored here. And if you can get that stuff early, then you avoid a huge problem of having to retrofit a solution or a piece of tech that's not actually fit for purpose because you didn't find this stuff up front. That sort of prototyping and fail quick approach is absolutely the best way, which again links back to that slide I showed early in the webinar. If you think about all the various solutions, all the various bits of tech that are floating around in the world at the minute, all saying that they're going to transform legal, they're going to improve how your firm works. A lot of the task of an IT director or an innovation specialist in a law firm is to distill that down into what actually is going to make the biggest difference. You know, we never tell our clients you need to throw out all of your business systems overnight and replace them with what we've built for you. It's all about working where the low-hanging fruit is and going on that journey and ticking things away. And I know there's been we listed some of those solutions earlier. So a good thing that I would recommend you guys watch is with another client called Ellis Whittam, who do employment law and sort of HR law, etc. We built a client portal with them that's live. It actually contributed to us winning the DevOps Company of the Year award. There's a really great video about our approach to working with them, working with their development team, and sort of upskilling their developers at the same time, and building a portal that enabled Ellis Whittam staff and the customers of Ellis Whittam to really quickly access information. So I'm sure Alex and some of the other guys will be following up with you, and we're more than happy to discuss that project we did as well, and what that's led to. But I guess the key point of Ellis Whittam and Depina is we want to understand where you are and help you get to a platform where you can keep having this conversation and look at new ways to innovate and new areas. We build software. We don't sell a one-size-fits-all solution because every law firm is different. You all have different practices made up of different people, and understanding that first is the key to building something that really makes a difference. So it also wouldn't be a webinar without a little bit of a gift shop at the end. So we do offer a very quick cloud app discovery workshop with someone who's incredibly talented like Amy, who will come in, speak with your kind of senior business people and do this process for you at a high level to begin with and give you somewhere to start. It might be looking at, get some people in a room, we're going to build an app or we're going to build a portal. How would we do that? Who would need to be involved? Who would we need to ask? Who would it impact? Is there any blockers to that? And these sorts of sessions can very immediately tease out those problems. It might tie into a wider project you're doing, but it might be worth take this higher level view, step back and spend some time with someone who really understands your client experience, who can really help you map that process, just to get a view that if you're currently doing a project or if you're considering one, it might be worth doing a workshop like this to take that approach. Right. Is there any questions? We have one question. But we did have one during the presentation, so I'm counting that as a win. Just pulling it up here, just talk amongst yourselves for a moment. There's a lot of suspense building on this, so appreciate your patience. Okay, so we've got a one asking about how does it integrate with current systems. So yeah, I guess it's I mean, I'll let Amy probably cover this a little bit more, but it's more of an approach than a you know, a single solution that we deploy. Mapping what you've currently got and what people currently use is probably the first thing we would do. I don't know if you would agree.
Yeah, kind of how it would integrate with current systems is kind of, I guess, way down the line into the detail of this. So this is all around, first of all, understanding, I guess, the opportunities by looking at your client needs and looking at your business goals and what's feasible and coming up with those solutions. Once you've got those solutions, as part of looking at that feasibility is looking at, well, is this something that's going to integrate with what we've currently got, and if so, how's that going to work? Is it a whole new thing? All of those questions start to get into kind of that underlying technical feasibility, which needs to be a conversation throughout, and then into the actual detail of the implementation. So I guess it's the whole point of it is trying to come up with potential solutions before you get too far into the technical detail.
Right. Well, if we got any more? No. Okay. Well, we shall leave it there. I know we'll send some feedback around. You know, whether you enjoyed it or not, it always helps us to know how we did. If there's anything we can improve, and yeah, thank you all for joining, and hope to see you all on another webinar soon. Thank you very much.